This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. CJAD 800.
All right, that is James Mennie over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, I want to start with what I heard I guess, a couple of newscasts ago. The CAC today announcing, here we go, yet again, another promise. They're going to hire how many? 5,000 people in terms of what? Nurses, doctors? What was the promise?
5,000 healthcare workers. They're going to increase, I think, 660 admissions for med students, and they're going to recruit 1,000 nurses overseas. And the only solution I see them having to this is, and I've been, because season 4 of Westworld is on now, so I've been rewatching the whole thing. So they've got a lathe in the National Assembly basement where they're cranking out these nurses. Let's call them all Dolores, and they're cranking these out just in time for October 4th, and then everything is going to be fine, unless things go horribly, horribly wrong. Come on, they have been saying this. Yeah. Since 2018, they have been recruiting people. By the way, we're getting rid of mandatory overtime for nurses, which of course is what's throwing so many nurses in Quebec out of the profession, moving them, into either the private sector or other provinces. And I remember, I think it was 2019. The then up and coming health minister Danielle McCann, remember her, addressed the nurses union and said, "Trust me, you will no longer have to work mandatory overtime." And here we are, we're still doing it. There are recycling once again promises they made 4 years ago in the hope, I guess, that people will buy into it. They're putting a price tag in it. They're going to be spending hundreds of millions of dollars every year, but nothing seems to change. It's part of our plan. It's going to be better, but nothing seems to change. So I'm very interested in seeing how long this particular policy is going to endure when it's clear the CAC is having one particular view of reality on any number of campaign issues, and the electorate is seeing something else entirely. And when you consider that there is that paradox that the CAC itself, Legault himself, seems to do well in popularity polls. And yet, other polls, and it's impossible for there not to be overlap, the vast majority of Quebecers, more than 70%, are absolutely dissatisfied with the state of the healthcare system. And they've had 4 years to make some kind of progress. They have not done that. I understand it was a pandemic, but all that said, to turn around and recycle this as if this is new. And don't worry, this time we're going to get it, but of course we have to get reelected. You really have to wonder. And I hate to keep sounding like a broken record here, but it's going to be one heck of a bunch of interesting debates, because really that's where they're going to have to they're going to have to ante up. They're going to have to explain themselves. Everybody knows there's a labor shortage for everything. We'll do this and we'll do that. We're going to get more cops. We're going to get more nurses. There ain't no more cops and there ain't no more nurses. Or
teachers.
Or teachers, exactly.
Yeah.
And they wonder why people are cynical. Like, we haven't heard this 1,000 times before.
They think we're dumb.
Well, I don't think they think we're dumb. But I mean, let's be honest. They've been in power 4 years, and they're rolling this out a month before an election, thinking, "Oh yeah," as Jim just said. Well, don't worry. The last 3-4 years, that they don't really count. We would have done something. And I guess they'll blame this on the pandemic in a sense, Jim. Right? I mean, that would make sense.
Well, of course they'll do it. But the other thing is, I think you're both. Well, I don't want to sound like Mr. Wishy-Washy. I think you're both kind of right. I don't think it's that they think we're dumb. I think that they quite rightly think that most of the time we're not paying attention. We'll be, when we're asked a question, of course we're not happy with it. We've had experience with the Quebec healthcare system. We know it doesn't work. We know there's all kinds of problems. The people within it know there are all kinds of problems. But all that said, in the end, there's not that much. Rather than being honest, saying, "Listen, there's not that much we can do. We're just keeping our heads above water as it is." They're recycling these promises, and I got to tell you, if I was in the network right now, working in the network, hearing this stuff recycled after 3 years, I got to tell you, if my morale was low before, it just went, it just took a crash dive after hearing these promises being recycled again.
All right. The other thing, I guess, on the campaign trail today, we'd hope to have Marwa Risky on today. That's not going to happen, understandably. She's dealing with a situation now. She's 8 months pregnant.
Very terrifying situation.
So I'm curious because I saw Dominique Anglade, and I guess we heard Marwa earlier on our newscast, suggested one of the people to blame for this heightened level of violence right now is Eric Duhaime. What do you think?
Yeah, she's accusing of channeling hatred, of channeling anger. And after that, Monsieur James reacted to her comments, and he said basically she's crossed the line. And she's just playing partisan politics. I don't know if she's playing partisan politics, but I got to tell you, and I in no way, am want to criticize Risky. I know that this is a horrible thing to be going through, but quite frankly, I think it's quite unfair to point the finger at Eric Duhaime. Yes, he has a lot of followers who are out there in anti-vax marches. He has a lot of followers out there who were saying this government's no good or whatever. And he did indeed say he was going to bring the discontent outside of the National Assembly into the National Assembly, which quite frankly, when I heard it, I didn't hear any fuses being lit. I just basically, another guy saying, listen, the people in this building are completely disconnected from what's going on in, outside of the building, out in the Great Quebec region. And he's not the first guy to have said that. But you and I, Aaron, and I mention you and me specifically because I think it's been at least for 7 or 8 years. We have, on one event or another, discussed, long before Eric Duhaime came on the scene, long before François Legault came on the scene, how the level of political discourse was becoming lower and lower. And it wasn't happening, in a crash dive. Nobody went off the side of the cliff, but it was a slow slide. And now we're in a situation where your opponents, your adversaries, and maybe the word enemy isn't used out loud, but the suggestion is you're either for us or against us. The suggestion is you either support our vision of Quebec or you are against Quebec. And I don't think I'm overstating the case there. A lot of people will hear that, and maybe it's white noise for most of the electorate. But don't forget, we've got the Internet. We've got people who think the Internet is some a cloaking device that allows them to say or do whatever they want. You can think that you're the king of the world, threatening the Premier of Quebec, François Legault, from the safety of your basement in your home in the West Island at 10 o'clock at night, and then at 2 a.m., SQ, open up. I'm not doing a metaphor here. That actually happened. Mm-hmm. And it happened to a couple of guys up in the area of Quebec City. And it's interesting to note that François Legault, who some people have accused of dividing Quebecers in a very cynical manner. He took to social media, I think maybe an hour and a half ago, citing the case of Ms. Risky, citing the case of the increasing tension, saying, this is not the Quebec we want, please stop it. Will people listen? I don't know, but he's done his due diligence. But please, to throw this on one politician's shoulders, when in fact, we've had this convergence between a real debasement of the practice of politics in Quebec and quite frankly across the country, and this open air sewer, which is the Internet. What did you think was going to happen? Fortunately, many of these things are just somebody spouting off, right? And to paraphrase Mike Tyson, everybody's on the Internet until they get punched in the mouth or until the cops are knocking on your door, okay? But that doesn't change the fact that this poison is now a part of the system. I don't think saying, this guy is responsible for it, or this party is responsible for it, or these people are a bunch of Nazis, showing not only that you don't know about the people you're talking about, you certainly don't know anything about Nazis, okay? But that's where we are. Can we turn the ship around? Not for a while, because the reach of the Internet around many people's intellects, their points of view, it's almost cancerous. It's almost impossible to get rid of now. Anything anyone says is a lie because you found your truth on the Internet and you are going to express it, and sometimes express it in very threatening and sometimes criminal ways. I don't know how to stop that. But honestly, saying, it's this guy or that guy, I'm not buying into that story.
You make excellent points, and the saddest part of all of that is, when you say, I don't know how to stop it, I don't think anybody does. And that's the scariest part of all.
Agreed.
So, Jim, thank you.
Well, as I've said before, the advent of the Internet has changed us. And it's changed the way we look at things. I mean, all of us. I won't presume to speak for you guys. The way we look at things, the way we process information, the way we assess information, it's not the same. And I know because I spent most of my life without an internet, and I know that my habits have changed. And I think for a lot of people who have only known the internet, for them, what many of us thought was the established kind of reality, the facts that are backed up by whatever, that doesn't matter anymore. It's either clicks or likes or, man, I think this person's onto something. Because if this is a conspiracy, why, if it's not true, why is everyone saying that it's not true? That's how the logic works.
James Mennie, the Montreal Gazette. Jim, thank you.
Adamant.